so what we're going to do today is we're going to build our first UWP application, Universal Windows Platform application. In this course thus far, we have worked with WPF, and now we're going to learn about UWP. You're going to want, throughout this lesson, you'll be wondering, well, what's the difference? And the difference lies more behind the scenes than it does in front of you. So a lot of your WPF knowledge will translate here, if not all of it. The main purpose of UWP is really for developers that develop in C++ to be able to take advantage of a WPF type language, right? So WPF was only good for really .NET, like C#, .NET, and so on, but C++ was never really a part of that scheme. And so they wanted to be able to include more platforms into it, and as well to be able to design an app specific that would fit nicely to all the various Windows operating system devices. So you can push your UWP platform app to whether it be HoloLens, your laptop, your Surface, Xbox, and so on. You'll have that ability with UWP. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a crash course on it today, but then we're going to jump more into a few specific things that are design in nature, just to add flair and effect. So what you're seeing here is this application. This is our final product. Just a simple, we'll start off with a very basic click me, I've been clicked, right, to get warmed up. And then we'll learn how to add little file menus, windows, or menu options. And then we'll get into a little basic calculator. And this is another effect here that we're going to learn about called reveal, right? As you mouse over, you can see that we have this little effect going on just to show the user some more stuff. And the other thing is that in here, and I don't know how well you can see it, but they're going to add this little transparent dish type background here, right? So you can see that this part of the screen is blue because behind it is the blue desktop. And then this is really white. And if I move this window over, you see more blue, right? So we're going to add that little crystallized effect here as well, right? Or frosted, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But that's the effect we're going to add as well. So it'll be the focus today. And then we're going to finish off with a simple calculator application like, 6 plus 9 equals 15, right? But at that point, the calculator portion, we'll build the calculator just for visually. And then you can, if you don't really want to get deeper into the video, you could stop the calculator at that point. But we'll finish off the entire calculator application in the final half of the video today. All right, so let's get started. So first off, you're going to create a new project, right? You're going to search for UWP, and you're going to use a blank app, Universal Windows, right? And you can see all the platforms it supports, like Xbox and so on, right? And so you're just going to choose this one, this very first one, and hit next and give it a home. Okay, so when you come to this window, I already pre-populated my information for this project, so just basically give it a home. And when you hit create, this window will pop up asking you what your target version is, because it's specific to Windows. You can see that if you were to be specific to a specific build of Windows, you could choose it here. Your target version, your minimum version. You can keep the defaults, it's good enough, and just hit OK. And right now it's creating a project. And I'm just going to bring it over here. All right. And so what you're going to see here is that it's your typical Windows project setup that we've done in WPF. There isn't anything different here so far yet. So we're going to find a few differences. But basically, like I said, the work you've done in WPF will translate here nicely. All right, and so let's start by opening up mainpage.xaml. And you'll see that you have your default home page that's been
pre-populated for you. You'll notice that there is a new menu option up here to ask you what device are you aiming for. So by default, it's trying to get you to develop for the 13.5 Surface Book Pro. You can see the dimensions there, 3000 by 2000. Right now it's at 2000% scale. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna go to like a 13.3 desktop, so a typical 1280 by 720, right? And so you can see here, it will change the dimensions. I'm just gonna go 100%. Maybe I'll just go a little bit smaller, 66. There, I can expand my code a little bit more. There. So now I have a bit more of a better look for everybody here. So you can see that we're in landscape mode. If you want to switch to portrait, well, you don't have that. Oh, right, because it's desktop, you don't have that option. If it was a mobile device, of course, or the Surface, back to the Surface, you could rotate and see what things look like in portrait as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off really simple. You notice that you have a toolbox. If you don't have a toolbox, you can go to View, and you can bring your toolbox into your right here. There's toolbox. You can add that in. I already have it on the side by default. If I click that, it's initializing. You know, you can see that all XAML controls are there. I'm going to look for a button. Just going to drag a button over. You can see the button's been added. Right, and I'm going to call it BTN click. All right, and also add a, well, actually let's modify the dimensions a bit, maybe make it a bit bigger. All right, let's change the text appearance. So content will go from button to click me. All right, and font, I can increase the font a bit if I wanted to. Let's see. There, 20 font's good. Now let's add some text right beside it. So I'll search for text. Little text block is good. Put it right beside. It's kind of small. I'm gonna call it TXT click me. And put like click to change text. Of course, that's probably, well, the font is not to my liking, so we'll fix that in a moment. All right, and probably leave it at that. I mean, of course, you could design any way you want. If you want to add some effect, but we talked about this in previous lessons, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We'll just keep it very basic for this, because I'll get to the new material in a moment. We've already named our objects here. Now what we want to do is we want to add an event handler so we can change that text. So I can double click on click me here. And if that doesn't work, you can always go to the lightning bolt with click me, the button click me highlighted. You can find your click event handler and double click on the box there. And there is your CS code behind file that you need to, and your event handler generated. So we'll just add something really simple to update that label by saying txt click me dot text is equal to I've been clicked. All right, something simple there. I'm going to Control S to save that. Switch back to my main page.xaml. So I have enough here to run. So just hit local machine, give it a run. Here we go, click me, I've been clicked. So up until now, nothing new. I mean, as long as you've been doing WPF up until now, everything is very familiar to you. Nothing's really changed. If you need some more understanding of this, you can jump back to my video on WPF Introduction and follow those videos to get really comfortable with it, and come back here to continue on if you need. But right now what we're going to do is now we're going to get into more UWP specifics, more flair for the application here. So we're going to add some transparency to the background of this application. All right, it's actually not as difficult as it sounds. Just going to close this, and to do this, I'm going to jump into my code here, my XAML code. You can see that we have our button and our text block defaulted into a grid. They're basically just free floating within this grid. So I'm going to change this grid to a stack panel. All right, and so you can see that the closing tag has changed as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rely on an internal theme, because I don't have to reinvent the wheel here with making that background transparent. Instead, I'm going to rely on one of the Windows themes. So I'm going to say stack panel background equals, open the set of curly brackets, and say theme resource space, and then system control acrylic window brush. Actually, it's there at the bottom. So system control acrylic window brush. Now let's save it and let's run it again. Now, of course, it's very difficult to see here because I have a lot of white going on in the background. If I minimize this, now it's changed to blue. Let's see if I can take some of this. So there, you see that going on. Now it's gonna get a little bit darker on this side. You can see now it's a bit better because we're going from the light blue to the dark blue there. So you can see that there is some effect going on, right? And we still have our click me, I've been clicked thing going on there. You see that the orientation has changed because now the label's been moved down because we're in a stack view. Or stack panel, that is. But by basically just by adding that little bit of code, we now can make the background of our Windows apps look transparent, right? So now let's move into getting a menu to appear, and we did this in a past lesson. The code is different. The code is similar yet different. The objects are different, are named different, but the code is essentially the same for the most part. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a menu bar, and I'm going to do this mostly in code. So maybe I'll just reverse this and put this at the top so it's easier to see. But what we have here now is we have our stack panel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move these two objects into their own stack panel. And I'll just say orientation is horizontal, because by default it's vertical. Let's hard code the height to 80, because we're going to need the space afterwards for our calculator portion. Right, and just move that below. There, looks a bit cleaner. All right. And so now we have room for our menu bar. So the object, as I just mentioned, is called a menu bar. So I'm going to put a menu bar in. Start with an opening menu bar. All right. And give it a name like X is main menu. I'm not going to add any event handlers to it. Let's set a width to, I don't know, like 800. width. Of course, you can toy with this because what it's going to do is it's going to center it in the middle of the application. I want it to be sort of the width of the screen, or as close to it as possible. Now, the menu bar is the actual menu. Now, for each category, so like file, edit, help, those are called menu bar items. So I'm going to open up a menu bar item. All right. Give it a name like X. Name would be menu file. All right. And title, which is the text that'll appear to the user, is, in this case, is file. All right. Now, every sub item under file is called a menu flyout item. So, menu flyout item. Give it a name again. We'll call it menu new. And we'll say text, which was what will appear to the user, is new. This just has a slash closing tag. We'll do another one. We'll say menu save text save. Do one more. Menu exit. We'll say text is exit. All right. So that would be our first one, our first menu. And let's run it and see what's going on. There you go, click file. There we go, we have our different options there. Now you're probably wondering, where did my button and click me go? Well, sometimes when playing around with these things, Windows is not your friend. So if you could look at the code here, we have our margin at 67 for our button click, 67 over, 84 down, but our height is only 80. So I actually want to reduce this down to being a margin of just 5. There we go, button has returned. And text box, well, we want to line it up as well. So margin of 245 and height 5 down. So a bit better there. Now we can actually see everything. Right, so you can see your file menu here. You can see click me and the click me text is there as well. So everything is back to normal. All right, let's add a couple more menu items. I'm actually just going to copy and paste. I don't want to type it again, and just change the names. So we got here menu edit, and its title will be edit. Within edit, it will be cut, copy, and paste. So this is cut. This is menu copy. And its text will be copy. And this will be paste. We got here paste. And let's just add one more for help, actually. So I will again copy and paste, but I only need 2 of them, so I'm gonna, or sorry, only 1 of them. Right, and this will just be a help, so menu help will be the name, and the text will be for it just help. And for lack of a better option, actually we should put about. And about. All right. And if I run it again, so we've built out our menu items here. Hit run. All right, so we got our click me button there. File, edit, help. All right, so now we've just done a simple menu. I call them file menus, but basically menu bars for application. So we've done the acrylic background. You can see a little bit of change in the color on this half versus this half. So there's something going on there in terms of transparency. And you got your menu going. All right, so now let's add the calculator portion. So the number pad to our application now. So I'm going to start a new stack panel just below our button, and click me label. So we'll say grid. And I'm going to say background is dark gray, and margin will be just 10. Of course, these numbers are arbitrary. We'll say padding is 5. I'm just going with what seems to work. Name is, we'll call it grid calculator. All right, there's my closing grid. Let's define our columns. We're going to have a 4x4 grid here. So we'll start with grid.column definitions. And we'll say column definition for 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, 4 column. All right. Our rows, we're going to have 4 rows. So grid.row definitions. We'll have row definition. So 1 row, 2 row, 3 rows, 4 rows. All right. So now we have a 4x4 column. All right. Now, let us define or populate our various buttons within this grid here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just adding buttons. So we'll add our first button right below. I'm not going to configure it too much other than to put the text in. So I'm going to say button X name will be, we'll start with multiply. So call it btn multiply. It will go at grid dot row of 0. So let it 0, 0. And then grid dot column of 0. Content will be X for multiply or star. And there. Now, of course, I'm not going to type this over and over again. As you can see, there's my X right there. Copy and paste is your best friend. So copy. There we go. I'm going to do them in groups of 4s because it's just easier that way. So we'll have multiply, divide, plus, and then minus. All right. So at 0, 1, we'll have divide, so slash for divide. And 0, 2, we'll have plus. And at 0, 3, we'll have minus. All right. So that's our, and of course it's not replicating because we have to change the names. So btn divide, btn plus, and btn minus. All right, now we're seeing all the buttons there. All right, now that's the first row. Let's do the second row. I'm just going to copy and paste because, again, copy and paste is my best friend. So the next row will be 7, 8, 9, and 0. So I'm going to say btn 7. It will go to row 1. In fact, all these are row 1s. All right, so that will help in that regard. And its content will be 7. And then we've got 8. In fact, I'll just do the names first. 9 and 0. There. Now we're seeing our second row appear. Now we'll fix the content. So 8, 9, 0. And you can see here our second row has appeared. All right. Just going to paste again for the third row. And of course, we've got to fix the names. So now we're going to go with 4, 5, 6, and clear. So 4, 5, 6, and clear. And of course, these are rows 2. So we'll change to row 2 there. And content will be its corresponding. So 4, 5, 6, and letter C in capital. All right, so now we're seeing this. And don't worry about the sizing of the buttons. We're going to take care of that in a moment. One more block. And this will be for 1, 2, 3 and the equal sign. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, and equal. And of course, this goes to row 3. And its content we accordingly. So 1, 2, 3, and equal sign. And there. Now we have all of our buttons in place. Now, I don't really want these buttons to be stretched out like this. Like I don't want to have the whole grid stretched across the screen. So I'm actually going to take this grid that we just created, put it inside a stack panel. So we'll say stack panel. Orientation is horizontal. And take that closing one, put it out at the end of the grid. Now, there we go. Now everything looks much nicer, right? It's all together. I mean, it's got some gaps, but we'll fix that in a moment. And the sizing is kind of tiny considering how much space we have, and we'll fix that in a moment as well. We also want to add in our reveal feature here. We want to be able to like the whole mouse over and reveal the adjacent buttons as well. So that's the next step here. So the next part, so we're done with the XAML side of things for this aspect, and what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the C# side of things, and we're going to do the rest in C#. But in order to do that, we need a method called page loaded to fire upon loading this screen. So I'm actually going to go to the top here, and where we have our page definition, we're going to continue on our page definition after background by saying loaded equals page underscore loaded. All right. So now we have to add this method to our C# code. So I'm going to right click on page loaded. All right. So this method is going to fire every time you load the screen, and go to definition. And so it generated page loaded for us. So now we're going to populate how we're going to define the grid inside page loaded. All right, so now let's apply this reveal style to our buttons. So here we have page loaded. It's going to start by grabbing this predefined reveal style as a variable called reveal. So we'll say style reveal equals resources dot theme dictionaries of button reveal style. So button reveal style as style. All right, no errors there. Button reveal style is typed correctly. So now we're going to loop through every single button that we have. So we're going to say for each button btn in grid calculator dot children dot of type button. All right, now we're actually going to configure every single button here in this for each loop, rather than doing a one by one and really taking a lot of time just to do that, especially if you want to make one change. You got to change like 15 other buttons. So doing it all here just saves a lot of time and headache. So we'll say btn dot font size is equal to 24, so font to 24. We'll say btn dot width equals 54. We'll say btn dot height also 54. Of course, you can play with these numbers to something more to your liking. And finally, the most important thing here, btn dot style equals reveal. All right, so now we've set our font size, set our width and height, and added the reveal style to each and every button. So I'm going to do a Control S to save, do a Control S to save here as well. Let's run, and let's see the magic in play. And there we go. We now have buttons that are revealing. So there's our reveal effect. Pretty cool, huh? All right. So at this point, visually, we're done the app. So if you wanted to just take away the visual side of things, this is what you need to know. But I don't like to leave things unfinished. So I'd like to continue on here and build out the calculator. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to reuse this label. I'm not going to add another label here for calculations. And I'm not going to make it a perfect calculator, just enough to do our add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And then, of course, you could take this further, complete it, because there's going to be some issues and errors, like divide by 0. I'm not going to account for that in this exercise today, but it's something I recommend you take the knowledge you've done so far and add to it. So let's get into this here. So first things first, we need to add an event handler to each and every single button that we have here. And I'm going to start with the numbers, right? So if we start with numbers 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and 0, what we're going to do is we're going to add an event handler. But I'm not going to add, like 10 different event handlers. I only want to add one event handler common to all the buttons, to all the number buttons, because they're going to do the exact same thing, just have a different digit. So starting off with btn 7, so I'm going to put that into focus. All right, so put my cursor on btn 7. I'm going to go over to my properties for btn 7, go to my lightning bolt. It's going to double click on click. Now, yes, it will generate the btn 7 click. I'm going to change btn 7 click to btn number click. All right, switch over to the XAML again. I'm going to change the name here to btn number click. I'm just going to hit run to make sure there's no errors introduced. All right, so far so good, no changes. Just want to make sure I didn't cause any errors in running. So I've got btn number click, all right, for btn 7. I'm just going to copy this name here for click. So copy. And then I'm just going to click on btn 8. Paste the name in there. Hit tab. and it's going to jump back here. In fact, to reduce the jumping, maybe I'll just take the click event here in code for XAML, actually just paste it everywhere. There, less jumping. I noticed that as I was building this out, a lot of jumping between windows here. So I wanted to, so 456, and so we did 7890, 456, 1, 2, 3. All right, so all of the numbers have their own event handler. Now, for the operations, plus, minus, divide, plus, and minus, and multiply, I'm going to highlight the multiply button. For click, I'm going to call it BTN operand click. And it generated a BTN operand click event handler, which is good. And then jumping back, I'm just going to copy and paste that click to the other three. So now we're going to have a common a common event handler for plus, minus, multiply, and divide. All right. Now for clear, it's going to use its own double click on that BTN clear click. That's good enough. And finally equal. So for equal, we'll just create its own event handler. So now we have everything here that we need. All right, we have all of our event handlers created. We have all of our all of the operations that were supposed to be combined together have been combined. Now let's write the code to get this calculator up and running. So I'm going to create some variables to handle all of this. So first off, I want to define operations plus, minus, multiply, and divide as their own constant. So I'm going to say const int plus is equal to 0, const int minus equals 1, const int multiply equals 2, const int divide equals 3. All right, now we're going to need a variable for num1, so we'll say private int num1 equals 0, private int num2 equals 0, private int, sorry, not int, this one will be double, answer equals 0.0, and finally private int operand. Let's leave it as that. Finally, we need a string, so we'll say private string the number equals 0, but as a string. Okay, so the number is going to hold our digits, and what we're going to do is, as we're clicking the number digits, we're just going to append them as characters using string joining. All right, so every time you hit a digit, it's going to combine. So that's the idea behind it. And let's see, what do I mean by that? Let's see that in action with our BTN number click method. So scroll down a bit here. We have BTN number click. It'll be that easy where we just say string button text is equal to string. So it's going to cast to a string button dot sender dot content. Sorry, not dot sender, but just button sender. There we go. So what's happening here is that, well, the object that fired this event handler gets passed into this event handler, right? So it's called sender. It should be a button, so we're going to cast it as a button. So button, the text inside button is is content. So when we're pressing buttons 7, 8, and 9, for example, the text 7, 8, 9 already exists on the button. So there's no point in reinventing the wheel and trying to figure out, oh, this was 7, this was 8. Just pull the text off of the button as a string, save it as a variable called button text, and just join it to the number. So the number plus equals button text, and then populate our text click me dot text equals the number. Right? Like I said, I was just going to reuse that label that's sitting there, since it's just kind of useless to just be sitting around waiting for one button to work on it. Of course, this isn't the perfect calculator, but it's just enough to get us up and running for today. If you want to have your own separate label, go for it. It's up to you. But at this point, we should have enough to run. So I'm going to save my CS file. Control S to save. Do the same for main page.xaml. Let's hit run. We should see the digits populate as we press them. Right? So we're seeing the digits populate. Now, of course, there's a leading 0. You could easily omit that leading 0 if you wanted to. I'll leave that to you as a little exercise to try and figure out how you might do that. But as a hint, the easiest thing to do is check the length, check to see if the string equals 0 already, the text 0, and then just don't do a plus equals, just do an equals, right? So that's a sort of hint for you to get up and running. All right, now let's do the operand. So at this point, the user would have pressed digits. They'll hit like plus or minus. So what we want to do is we want to handle that operation right there. All right, so that'll be inside btn operand click. So first thing to do is, at that point, when they hit plus or minus, we know that they've saved. They're done with entering the digits for the first number. So let's save that as num1. So num1 equals int 32.parse for the number. All right. Now let's reset the number back to 0. And let's reset the label. Oops. There. Let's reset the label txt clickme.text back to the number. All right, so we're done with saving the first number, and we're done with resetting the label back to 0, so the user can continue on with the second number. But we have to save the operation that was pressed. So again, object.sender sends us the object that fired the event handler. So we'll check to see which one it was. We'll see if sender equals btn plus, then operand equals plus. Right? Else if sender equals btn minus, then operand equals minus. Else if sender equals btn multiply, then operand equals multiply. Finally, else, at this point we know it's a divide. So we'll just say else operand equals divide. All right. So at this point we've saved the operation. Okay, so you could test it out. You should see the digits reset back to 0. I'm going to continue on. Clear is easy. We're just going to reset the number back to 0, and txt clickme.text equals the number. All right. So now I've got the clear up and running, so it'll clear our error. Finally, equal. So our equal calculation as well. So at this point, they've entered the first number, they hit plus, minus, multiply, or divide. We've saved that operation. And then they start to proceed to enter the second number, and then they hit the equal sign, which will lead us to this method. So now, whatever digits are pressed on the screen are assumed to be for num2. So we'll just say num2 is equal to int 32 dot parse for the number. Now we'll go through operations again. We'll say if operand equals plus. So if it was the plus that was entered originally, we'll just say answer equals num1 plus num2. Else if operand equals minus, answer equals num1 minus num2. Else if operand equals multiply, then answer equals num1 times num2. Finally, else, we know it's a divide. We're going to say answer equals num1 divided by num2. Now what we'll do is we'll pass our answer to the label. So we'll say txt clickme dot text is equal to answer dot toString. Converts it to a string. Now let's reset everything back to 0. So we're going to say num1 equals 0, num2 equals 0, operand equals 0, just to for consistency, answer equals 0, and finally the number equals 0. All right, now you have enough to run. This calculator should be complete. Of course, there's a few bugs in there, and I will illustrate them right now. And we'll fix one, but I'll leave the rest to you for practice. So let's hit run. All right, so I'll say like 9 plus 5 equals 14. Hit clear. We'll say 4 minus 9 equals -5. Hit clear. 2 times 8 equals 16. Hit clear. Now let's say 5 divided by 9. It's not 0. All right, so I have a little bit of adjusting to do right now. So let's fix that. So the issue is that we have an int divided by an int fed into a double, but this thinks it's an int, so it's actually chopping off the decimal spaces. So we have to cast these to doubles first. So double divided by double will then remain a double. All right, so let's try it again. Let's say 6 divided by 9 equals 0.667. Perfect. One last thing, I'm going to crash the app by saying 3 divided by 0 equals infinity. Ah, see, I was doing this earlier and it crashed the app. So it was smart enough to pick up that, yes, this is infinity. What I still recommend you do is that you want to handle the exception. If an exception, so you want to put this code inside a try catch. If there's an exception, pop up a message box to say you cannot divide by 0. right? So you want to continue on this code and try and crash the app and see what's going on here. But interestingly enough, it picked up infinity this time. All right, so there you have it. You have a simple calculator. We talked about reveal. We talked about our acrylic background, right? Clear, a little bit of a transparent background there. It's called acrylic. We did a little bit of an introduction to UWP. You find that a lot of your knowledge for WPF translates over easily, and except that you're able to build specifically for Windows-based devices now. So that's it. Until the next video, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.